Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today our group will present our analysis entitled A Trend and Comparative Study of Spritzer Berhad and FNM Holding Berhad. The purpose of this study is to compare the financial performance of both companies over the period from 2021 to 2022 using financial ratio analysis. For today's presentation, we will cover 4 sections. The first one is the background of both companies, their financial statements, the financial ratio analysis, and finally our conclusion and recommendation.
Assalamualaikum. Today I will present a background about financial comparative analysis between Spritzer Berhad and FNM Holding Berhad for the years 2021 and 2022. The purpose of this study is to compare the financial performance of both companies using several financial ratios. These ratios help investors evaluate a company's financial strength and make better investment decisions. First, let me briefly introduce both companies. Spritzer Berhad is a Malaysian large bottled water manufacturer. The company mainly produces natural mineral water, distilled water, and other beverage products. Spritzer focuses on the bottled water market and operates mainly in the niche industry. On the other hand, FNN Holding Berhad is much large beverage and food corporation. Besides bottled drinks, FNN also produces dairy products, juice, soft drinks, and many other consumer products. Due to its diversified business model, FNN has multiple sources of revenue. We compare these two companies because they operate in the beverage industry but have different business skills and strategy. This allows us to identify which company perform better financially. The analysis focuses on 4 key areas. First, liquidity ratio, ability to meet short-term obligation. Second, activity ratio, efficiency in using assets. Third, leverage ratio, level of debt financing. Fourth, profitability ratio, ability to generate profits. At the end of this analysis, we will determine which company shows stronger overall financial performance and offers better investment potential.
Let's move to net working capital. Net working capital measures the amount of excess current asset available after deducting current liabilities, indicating a company's ability to finance its day-to-day operation. A higher net working capital reflects stronger liquidity and better short-term financial stability. For Spritzer, the net working capital decreased from RM 160.8 million in 2021 to RM 94.8 million in 2022. This decline was mainly to the lower current asset and higher current liabilities, showing that Spritzer had less excess fund to support its daily operation. Meanwhile, for the FNN, the net working capital increased from RM 1,112.9 million in 2021 to RM 1,396.4 million in 2022. This improvement was driven by higher current asset outpacing the rise in current liabilities, giving the company more liquid resources for short-term activities. Comparing both companies, FNM maintained a much higher net working capital than Spritzer in both years, which means it has stronger liquidity and better short-term financial stability. However, Spritzer figures still remain positive despite the drop. Both companies performed positively, but FNM remained the stronger company in terms of liquidity position. Let's move to the current ratio. Current ratio measures a company's ability to pay its short-term liabilities using current assets. A higher current ratio reflects a stronger liquidity position and a better buffer to meet short-term financial obligations. For Spritzer, the current ratio decreased from 3.17 times in 2021 to 2.11 times in 2022. This decline was due to lower current assets and higher current liabilities, showing a lower liquidity compared to 2021, but it still remains safely above the standard 1.0 threshold. Meanwhile, for the FNN, the current ratio slightly decreased from 2.69 times in 2021 to 2.67 times in 2022. Although current assets increased significantly, current liabilities also increased at a similar pace, allowing the company to remain in a stable and strong liquidity position. Comparing both companies, Spritzer recorded a higher current ratio than FNN in 2021, but in 2022, FNN achieved a stronger and more stable ratio. This indicated better short-term financial stability and liquidity management from FNN in a second year. Both companies actually performed positively, maintaining an adequate ability to meet short-term obligations as both stay above 1.0 times.
Quick ratio shows whether a company can pay its short-term debts using its most liquid assets such as cash and account receivable without depending on inventory. For Spritzer Berhad, the quick ratio decreased from 2.7 times in 2021 to 1.6 times in 2022. This happened because the company's current assets decreased while its current liability increased. Even though the ratio dropped, it's still above 1.0. This means Spritzer was still able to pay its short-term debts without needing to sell its inventory. For FNN, the quick ratio also decreased slightly from 1.7 times in 2021 to 1.6 times in 2022. This was mainly because inventory and current liabilities increased during the year. When we compare both companies, Spritzer had a stronger quick ratio in 2021. However, in 2022, both companies recorded the same ratio of 1.6 times. This shows that both companies had a similar ability to pay their short-term obligations using their liquid assets. Account receivable turnover. This ratio measures how quickly a company collects money from a customer who buy on credits. The higher the ratio means the company collects payment faster. For Spritzer Berhad, the ratio increased from 4.66 times in 2021 to 5.332 times in 2022. This is a positive sign because it shows that Spritzer became more efficient in collecting payments from its customers. The improvement was mainly due to the higher sales during the year. For FNN, the ratio decreased from 9.94 times in 2021 to 7.83 times in 2022. This means FNN took a longer time to collect money from customers compared to the previous year. However, when comparing both companies, FNN still recorded a higher ratio than Spritzer in both years. This indicates that FNN was generally more efficient in collecting customer payments and managing credit sales. To conclude, Spritzer showed improvement in collecting receivables in 2022, while FNN experienced a slight decline. Even so, FNN remained the stronger performer overall in terms of receivable condition.
Next, I want to talk about average collection period for Spritzer, which has better receivable management than FNN during 2021 and 2022. Its average collection period has improved from 19.9 days to 18.4 days during 2022. It's indicating a better customer payment and cash flow management for Spritzer. In contrast, FNN average collection period increased from 36.2 to 42.1 days in 2022. This suggests that the company took longer to collect the debt, and possibly due to higher account receivable and change in customer behavior in paying the debt after the pandemic. Overall, Spritzer have outperformed FNN for both years as it have shorter collection period for 2021 and 2022. Next, I want to talk about average payment period. The average payment period (SMPP) shows how long a company takes to pay its supplier. For example, Spritzer Berhad reduced its payment period from 57.9 days in 2021 to 39.2 days in 2022, indicating faster settlement of debts and improved payable management. In comparison, F&N company payment period increased slightly from 32.8 days in 2021 to 35 days in 2022, meaning the company took a little longer to pay its supplier. Overall, although Spritzer improved significantly in 2022, F&N maintained a shorter payment period in both years, reflecting greater efficiency in managing and settling its trade obligation.
Next, I will present the inventory turnover, or ITO, of Spritzer and F&N for 2021 and 2022. Inventory turnover measures how efficiently a company manages and sells its inventory. A higher ratio generally means inventory is sold and replaced more frequently. For Spritzer, the ratio increased slightly from 5.0 times in 2021 to 5.8 times in 2022. Its cost of goods sold rose from Rm 199.8 million to Rm 257.5 million, while inventory increased from Rm 35.3 million to Rm 44.1 million. This shows that Spritzer maintained efficient inventory management. For F&N, the ratio decreased from 4.5 times in 2021 to 3.7 times in 2022. Although its cost of goods sold increased from Rm 2.94 billion to Rm 3.30 billion, inventory grew more quickly, from Rm 659.7 million to Rm 901.4 million. This suggests that F&N took longer to sell its inventory in 2022. Overall, Spritzer recorded a higher inventory turnover than F&N in both years. Now, I will present the fixed asset turnover, or FATO, of Spritzer and F&N for 2021 and 2022. Fixed asset turnover measures how efficiently a company uses its fixed assets to generate sales. Generally, a higher ratio means the company is using its assets more effectively. For Spritzer, the ratio remains stable at 1.1 times in both years. Its sales increased from Rm 331 million in 2021 to Rm 433.3 million in 2022. However, fixed assets also increased from Rm 315.7 million to Rm 411.5 million. Therefore, its asset utilization remained consistent. In comparison, F&N recorded a much higher ratio. Its FATO increased slightly from 3.0 times in 2021 to 3.1 times in 2022. Sales rose from Rm 4.113 billion to Rm 4.47 billion, while fixed assets increased more slowly from 1.37 billion to Rm 1.46 billion. Overall, F&N used its fixed assets more efficiently than Spritzer in both years. Spritzer shows stable performance, while F&N demonstrated stronger and improving their operating efficiency.
Hi, I'm Farah Nadia. Now I will talk about total asset turnover. Total asset turnover measures how efficiently a company uses its total assets to generate sales revenue. Spritzer's total asset turnover improved from 0.6 times to 0.7 times, showing better efficiency in using assets to generate sales. F&N's total asset turnover declined slightly from 1.2 times to 1.1 times, indicating a small drop in asset utilization efficiency.
Next, I will discuss the gross profit margin, which measure how efficiently a company generates gross profit from its sales revenue. For Spritzer, the gross profit margin decreased slightly from 60.3% in 2021 to 58.4% in 2022. There was a small decline. The ratio remained very high. This means Spritzer was still able to retain more than half of its sales revenue as gross profit, showing effective cost management and strong profitability. For F&N, the gross profit margin decreased from 28.9% in 2021 to 26.3% in 2022. This indicates that the company earned less gross profit from every ringgit sales compared to Spritzer. The decline suggests that production costs of operating increased faster than sales revenue. Based on the financial statement and gross profit margin analysis, Spritzer demonstrates stronger profitability and better operational efficiency than FNN. Spritzer higher gross profit margins indicates better cost control, stronger pricing power, and greater ability to generate profit from sales. Meanwhile, FNN lowers margins suggests that the company face higher costs and earn less profit from its revenue. Therefore, based on the financial statement analysis and profitability ratio, Spritzer is the recommended company for investors. The company shows stronger profitability, more efficient operations, and a better financial position, making it a more attractive and lower risk investment compared to FNN.
Next, I will explain the net profit margin. This ratio measures how much profit a company earns from every ringgit of sales after deducting all expenses and tax. A higher NPM generally indicates better profitability and cost management. For Spritzer Berhad, the NPM increased from 7.3% in 2021 to 8.5% in 2022. This means Spritzer become more profitable in 2022. The increase suggests that the company managed its costs more efficiently and generated higher profit from its sale revenue. For FNN Holding Berhad, the NPM decreased slightly from 9.6% in 2021 to 8.6% in 2022. Although FNN still recorded strong profitability, the decline indicates that expenses increased faster than profit during the period. When comparing both companies, FNN had a higher NPM in 2021. However, the gap became much smaller in 2022. In 2022, FNN recorded 8.6% while Spritzer recorded 8.5%. This showed that Spritzer was catching up and improving its profitability performance significantly. The key takeaways is that Spritzer showed improvement in profitability while FNN experienced a slight decline. However, both companies remain profitable and maintain healthy profit margin.
Let's move to the operating profit margin (OPM). OPM measures a company's ability to generate operating profit from its sales revenue before interest and taxes. A higher operating profit margin reflects better operating efficiency and stronger profitability. For Spritzer, the OPM increased from 9.3% in 2021 to 10.6% in 2022. This improvement was mainly driven by higher EBITs, showing that Spritzer achieved better operating efficiency and stronger cost control. Meanwhile, for the FNN, the OPM slightly decreased from 11.4% in 2021 to 10% in 2022. Although the company recorded higher sales, its EBIT decreased due to the higher operating expense, resulting in slight weakening of its margin. Comparing both companies, FNN recorded a higher OPM than Spritzer in 2021, but the gap narrowed in 2022, with Spritzer ultimately achieving a higher margin. Overall, Spritzer showed a stronger improvement while FNN experienced a slight drop of operational profitability. Both companies actually performed positively for Spritzer, showed better progress in managing its operation efficiency over a 2-year period.
Let's move on to the return on assets or ROA. ROA measures how efficiently a company uses its total assets to generate net profit. A higher ROA indicates better asset utilization and stronger profitability. For Spritzer, the ROA increased from 0.3% in 2021 to 6.1% in 2022. This improvement was mainly due to the higher net profit, showing that Spritzer became more efficient in generating earnings from its assets. Meanwhile, for FNN, the ROA slightly decreased from 9.5% in 2021 to 9.1% in 2022. Although the company maintained strong profitability, its asset growth was higher than the increase in profit. Comparing both companies, FNN recorded a higher ROA in both years, indicating that it utilized its asset more effectively to generate profit. However, Spritzer showed a stronger improvement over the 2-year period. Overall, both companies performed positively, but FNL remained the strongest company in terms of asset profitability. Move to the return on equity or ROE. ROE measures how efficiently a company uses a shareholders' equity to generate profit. A higher ROE indicates better returns for shareholders. For Spritzer, the ROE increased from 5.2% in 2021 to 7.5% in 2022. This improvement was mainly driven by higher net profit, resulting in better returns for shareholders. For FNN, the ROE slightly decreased from 40% in 2021 to 12.8% in 2022. Despite the decline, FNN continued to maintain strong returns for its shareholders. When we compare both companies, FNN recorded a higher ROE in both years, showing that it was more effective in generating profits for shareholders' funds. However, Spritzer demonstrated greater improvement during the 2-year period. In conclusion, both companies achieved positive returns, but FNN still remained the stronger performer in the terms of equity profitability.
Now I will talk about debt ratio. Debt ratio measures the proportion of a company's total assets that are financed by liabilities. Spritzer's debt ratio increased slightly from 17.1% to 17.9%, but it remained low, indicating conservative financing and low financial risk. FNN's debt ratio increased slightly from 22.4% to 22.8%, showing a higher reliance on debt financing.
For debt to equity ratio, which measure how much a debt company use compared to shareholders' equity, a lower ratio indicates lower financial risk and more stable capital structure. For Spritzer, the debt to equity ratio increased slightly from 20.6% in 2021 to 21.8% in 2022. The ratio increased, it remained relatively low, showing that the Spritzer relied less on debt financings and maintained a stable financial position. For FNN, the debt to equity ratio increased significantly from 28.8% in 2021 to 40.4% in 2022. This indicates that FNN used more debt to finance its operation and growth. A higher debt to equity ratio means higher financial leverage and potential higher financial risk. So, based on the financial statement and financial ratio analysis, both companies are financially healthy and profitable. However, Spritzer appears to be better investment choice for risk-conscious investor because it has a lower debt to equity ratio, indicating stronger financial stability and less dependence on borrowings. FNN may offer stronger growth opportunity. Its high debt level exposes investors to greater financial risk. Therefore, if investors prefer a company with a stable capital structure and lower risk, Spritzer is the recommended investment choice based on the financial ratio analysis. So, invest in Spritzer Berhad due to its stronger financial stability, lower debt burden, and lower financial risk.
Next, time interest earned. The time interest earned time ratio measures a company's ability to pay its interest expenses using operating profit. Spritzer Berhad's time ratio decreased from 61.6 times in 2021 to 51.2 times in 2022 due to higher interest expenses. However, the ratio remains strong, indicating that the company could comfortably meet its interest obligation. And similarly, FN's tie ratio declined slightly from 78.7 times in 2021 to 77.2 times in 2022, mainly due to lower operating profit. Despite the decrease, FNN maintained a very strong ability to cover its interest expenses. Overall, both companies show healthy interest coverage, but FNN constantly recorded a higher tie ratio, demonstrating a stronger ability to meet interest commitment and lower financial risk. Based on the overall financial ratio analysis, both Spritzer Berhad and FNN Holdings Berhad demonstrated stable financial performance during the 2021 to 2022 period. From the liquidity perspective, both companies were able to meet their short-term obligations, but FNN generally maintained a stronger liquidity position. For activity ratios, FNN showed better asset utilization, while Spritzer performed well in managing inventories and receivables. In terms of profitability, both companies generated profit successfully. Spritzer showed noticeable improvement in profitability during 2022, while FNN maintained stronger overall returns despite slight declines in certain ratios. For leverage ratio, Spritzer rely less on debt financing and therefore carry lower financial risks. FNA use more debt but maintain strong interest coverage. Lastly, FNN demonstrated stronger performance in most financial areas due to its large scale of operations, diversified product portfolio, and stronger profitability. That's all from us from Group 3. Thank you.